The shock of the announcement had Stanley transfixed for a moment. Jumping back into himself, he gathered his mother into his hands to comfort her. "I've been trying to call you since last night, but you wouldn't pick your call. I was so scared that something might have happened to you too." "I am sorry, Mom. My phone has been on silence, and I think I left it charging upstairs. What happened?" "He had another heart attack last night. I was on my way to Rosie's charity ball when I got the call. He died a few hours after I got there." "I'm so sorry, Mom." Stanley had never been close to his grandfather. He felt bad for his mom, but he did not feel any sense of loss or sorrow at his passing. Instead, he felt guilty for the way he felt. Having witnessed his grandfather's treatment of his father right from a young age had made him detest him. Even though he respected and admired him and had always honored him whenever he would summon him to his office or house, or sometimes to brag to his friends about the achievements of his grandson or to ask for a business insight, he would go without question to honor him, yet he never cultivated a relationship with him. He believed and still believes that without him, his parents might have found a way to make their marriage work. But that is not the worst part of it. Bosse began, and he gave her a little space to listen to her. His greedy wife and sons have fixed his funeral 14 days from now. Seeming to recollect her composure, and with that, anger. "Can you imagine that? They want to bury him like a pauper. My father was a high chief. I suggested we calm down and plan a befitting funeral for him. And she told me I could make the decisions when I'm burying my own husband." There is something fishy going on. Bosse paused in her rant and looked at her son. "Don't you smell a cover-up? Why rush the funeral?" Stanley chuckled. "Mom, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Grandmother would never hurt grandfather." "She's not your grandmother." She turned to him, eyes blazing. Forgotten was her meltdown a few seconds ago. Stanley would never understand his mother and the way her mood could swing from one extremity to the next. "First thing Monday morning, I am getting a court injunction to stop the funeral, and then we are going to conduct a proper autopsy." "Mom, hey, calm down. Why not let me look into this discreetly? And then, if I confirm your suspicions, you can go ahead and do whatever you want. If you do this, and she's really innocent, you would have added to the sorrows of a grieving widow." She looked at him intensely for a moment. "I give you 48 hours, or she and her bastard sons would know what I'm truly capable of. They see this as an opportunity to push me out, the girl child, because they happen to have a weak third leg between their legs. No, not all women can be pushed out easily." Stanley had to stop himself from laughing. He was used to his mother's sour tongue and ire, but he also knew that most of the time they were mere words. She began to leave. 48 hours, she reminded him, and then turned as she got to the door. "Apologize to your friend-turned family for me. Tell her it was the grief." With that, she left. Stanley heaved a sigh of relief. Oftentimes, he had wondered why his mother never remarried, but what man in his right mind could handle his roller coaster of a mother? "Hey," Star said from the kitchen door, and he turned to look at her standing there quietly with a concerned look on her face, telling him she overheard their conversation. "I am sorry about your grandfather. Thank you. Are you alright? You want me to stay?" "It's okay. It is difficult to feel sorrow when you are not close to the deceased. Okay? But I am only one call away." No matter how much Stanley was confusing her emotions, he was her friend first of all. And like he said, family. And families are supposed to band together and offer each other comfort in times like this. But if he says he didn't need it, who was she to persist? Besides, hearing him defend her honor and explain to his mother that they were friends and nothing more seemed to have put an end to her silly infatuation for him. I would be leaving now. In my shirts? He smiled when she looked at him with shock. Just kidding. I will give you a ride. Besides, it is high time I know your new house. She smiled at him and nodded. I will run upstairs and grab another shirt. He left. She watched him climb the stairs and wondered again if she was not in some kind of a dream. She pinched herself just to be sure. And when she did not wake, she heaved a sigh, waiting for him and wondering what the future held for both of them. Star sat beside Stanley in his Mercedes Maybach as they sped through town, enjoying his classic collection of songs. She stole a glance at him and wondered again how all these were happening. Was it not only yesterday that her mother suggested she gave him the green light? She did not think she had even done that yet. Here they were. They had even kissed. No, she had kissed him. She stifled a sigh. "You okay?" he asked her. He had watched a series of emotions pass through her face, and he wondered what she thought about. He also wondered if she remembered kissing him. He smiled inwardly. It did not matter if she remembered or not. He was definitely going to remind her in his own good time. "I am fine. You look like I'm taking you to see the principal." He smiled that very sexy smile of his, and she found herself drowning. She couldn't help smiling back. "I am just a bit mortified." He raised his eyebrows at her. "I'm wearing your tees and last night's makeup and still in my heels." He looked at her with his bedroom eyes twinkling and smiled. She felt her body warm up at his lazy one-shot stare. "I will need directions to your house," he said finally. She heaved a sigh and gave him directions to her house, praying she wouldn't see her mom before she had a chance to freshen up. Her prayers were not answered. As soon as he pulled up in front of her house, there was her mom, bent over her car trunk, offloading groceries. In that moment, she wished the earth would open up and swallow her. Her mom turned as she heard the powerful roar of his car engine behind her. "That's your mom?" Stanley said to her. "Yes," she groaned. "Is there a point in asking you not to step out of your car?" He laughed. "I haven't seen her in ages, so I would love to say hi. And besides, Summer, you're a grown woman." He stepped out of the car. So engrossed was she in the fact that he called her by her real name that it took her a minute to realize he had left the car and was talking to her mom. Whoa. She stepped out of the car, dreading every minute of it, trying to forget the fact that her name sounded like an endearment, so sexy coming from him, that her heart was still doing flippbacks because of it. Then her mom looked at her, and her heart stopped completely. She could see all the questions in her eyes as she took in her attire. "I love your new house," she heard Stanley say. "Thank you." Joy turned her attention back to Stanley. Star did not waste any more time, not even to admire her estate of uniform white, fully detached duplexes. She escaped inside the house. Stanley watched her escape and chuckled. The party ran late and she couldn't get a cab home. "You don't have to explain there. You and Summer have been friends a long time for any explanation to be needed." She bent to pick up one of the sack of groceries on the floor, but he stopped her. "I'll bring them in, just lead the way." She smiled her thanks and led the way. He whistled in appreciation when he entered the house. "I love the inside better." "Thank you. When was the last time you had fisherman soup?" "Homemade or restaurant bought?" He returned her smile. "Homemade. Been too long. Before my grandma died." "I am about to make your day to say thank you for helping me with the groceries, and I would very much love it. But I am sorry I can't stay. I have an errand to run for my mom. But I will hold you up to that offer." "Whenever you're ready," Joy smiled. Star came quietly downstairs, listening to her mother and Stanley converse, and wondering how her mother can be so shameless, practically begging him to stay for a meal. She was going to give her mom a piece of her mind and put an end to this Stanley madness. "Here's my number. So now you have no excuse but to invite me." Star watched amazed as Stanley gave out his private number that he rarely gave out to her mom. That's how much I miss homemade fisherman's soup. Star cleared her throat behind them, and he turned to look at her. She held her breath as his eyes traveled the length of her. She watched him nod in appreciation, and she could feel her heart leap in joy at that. And then she became real angry with herself for wanting his verdict at her appearance. Angry at how pitiful she must look, waiting for a stingy compliment. "I would walk you to your car," she suggested before she gave in to her anger and walked back upstairs. Outside, he led the way to his car and she leaned on it, while he stood staring at her. "You look hot in that ensemble." She nodded tightly, still not over her anger. "If I didn't know any better, I would have thought you were hitting on my mom." He laughed. "It is not my fault that she's beautiful. I am not joking." Somehow his laughter seemed to irritate her more. "Why would I hit on your mom when her beautiful daughter is in front of me?" It was no use being angry with him. You can't rile him up. Stanley only got angry when he wanted to. Such was his control. "So I will dry clean your shirt and return it." He waved her off and suddenly lifted her, and she yelped with surprise. But he was only lifting her out of the way so he could enter his car. Stanley would never cease to amaze her. A simple "excuse me" would have done the job, and miss that element of surprise. He opened his car door. "Stanley," she called quietly. It was now or never, she said to herself. "About the kiss last night, I am..." He stopped her by placing a hand on her lips. "I plan to try that again, but without the alcohol and nightmare between us. After that, we will decide if apology is the best thing." He tilted her jaw up and kissed the corners of her mouth and forehead and entered his car. The powerful engine roared as he drove off. She stood there transfixed, trying to make sense of what just happened. Heaving a sigh, she turned and bumped into someone. Found her neighbor, the good doctor. "Hello," he said to her. "Hi," she returned, wondering if he had seen the second richest man in the country kiss her. "I am sorry I had to miss your party last night," she apologized, since it looked as if he was finding it difficult to make out his words. "Then you have to make it up to me," he smiled at her. He was a good-looking man, she agreed, but something was missing. That power, that aura that came with being an alpha and a leader was missing. "How might I do that?" "Let me buy you dinner tonight." "Smooth," Star thought. "I am sorry, I can't tonight." "Let's do it next week." "When?" "Let me have your number. I will let you know, but I am thinking Wednesday." She smiled and began walking back to her door, dreading every step because her mother would be demanding answers to questions she did not have. Just as she feared, her mother was waiting for her. Star saw her standing by the kitchen door, cooking spoon in her hand. She heaved a resigned sigh, and then it occurred to her that her best defense was offense. "Mom, what were you thinking? Begging him to stay for a meal?" "Stanley is too perceptive. Don't think he didn't see right through you. Another desperate matchmaking mama out to snare him." Her hands on her hips, facing her mother squarely. To her utter surprise, her mom began laughing. "Oh my goodness, Summer." She stared at her mom like she was going mad. "It's funny. You actually thought that ploy would work with me? Between the two of us, one has done something to be embarrassed about, and it's not me. I told you to give him green light, not spend the night with him." "I didn't," she tried to say, but her mom wasn't finished yet. "No wonder you are single, my darling. You were supposed to tease him and make him feel it was his idea and never yours. I see you, an expert. No wonder we are both single. And by the way, I didn't have sex with him. How come you come back wearing his shirt?" "Just beg me to gist you, Mom." She smiled and began walking upstairs, knowing how frustrated her mom was feeling. "Come back here and act with it, or forfeit that sleep you are craving." She followed her upstairs. "No way," Star ran, meaning to get to her room and lock the door. But her mom, anticipating that move, was already on her, and they both entered the room laughing.
In the still of the night, I think of you. My heart beats with every thought